Hi, friends. Welcome to 2022. Okay, so first video of the year will be a little summary of the energy of the year. I always like to take a look at what the numerology is of the year to get a general energy or personality of the year that we're going to be in. So this is a little bit of a special year because we have the 222 in the 2022. So for those of you who follow numerology, you know that repetitive numbers bring them into master and ascended master level as far as our mastery of ourself moving through our lives. And so we're looking at the repetitive two, but when we've gone past the master level of the 22, now we're moving into more of what we would consider a trinity level. So we're going to take a look at a couple of different aspects of this and from a couple of different perspectives. We are going to talk a little bit about zodiac planetary things. But as I always say, I am not an astrologer. So if you really want to get a good look at 2022 from an astrological perspective, go see your favorite astrologer. So let's get started just by recapping 2021 a little bit. So we're coming out of a 5-year. And in general, 5 has the energy of change. It has the energy of discovery of inner truth, and it has a little bit of a rebellious quality to it. And the reason why is because inside of that higher truth, we're really looking at a new relationship with truth that's more on a spiritual level for us, not just what we are dealing with inside of our 5 senses around us, right? So we have the foundational, which is more of a 4, right? So we're coming out of more of that foundational in 2020. So we had the 2020, that 22 there, and now we've got the 222, right? Coming in this year. So we can see that there is a very deep connection, traveling through these, 2020, 2021, now 2022, where we've got that mastery level coming at us through numerology. So in the 2021, we're coming out of a year where we were really reevaluating what that inner voice looks like. And the statement, the real story of 2021 was what is spiritually true for your soul and what is not. Okay. So we started going inside last year. And for those who really were just starting on a journey that we would consider an awakening, this was profound because we really started to look at where things didn't quite make sense to us anymore. It was like, wait, I'm hearing that, but why does that not resonate with me? Like, that doesn't seem true to me. Even though I'm being told that that's true, I don't feel that inside. I don't feel that connection or that truth in me. And there were big question marks that started to come up around that. We started to see the foundation under our feet moving a little bit. And whenever we're talking about this, it's more of like a collective thought, right? So obviously it's going to affect us on the microcosm, meaning inside of our own lives. But we're also talking about a collective energy shift for the macrocosm, meaning humanity as a whole. We're affected a little bit differently depending on where we are in the world. But generally speaking, the collective consciousness means that we are all affected by it, whether we are conscious of it or unconscious. It really has a significant impact on us, the way we think, the way we feel, the ideas that start dropping in, the connection to each other, and the connection to the larger truths that are going on around us, whether that is in our neighborhood, in our local community, inside of our families, or whether we're looking at it more on the larger political platforms, the different things like that. So we did see a lot of the rumbling in 2021. A lot of rebellion. There's been a lot of protesting. There's, for the most part, we're looking at, I would say, a general practice of peaceful protest. But we have also seen a clash between the people and the administrations, right? So we've seen the cry for freedom coming out of 2021, and it has carried into this year. But this was one of the stories of 2021. The number 5 talks about freedom. It talks about freedom from old truths that potentially were holding you back. And when we start to shed our old truth, which is our belief system, okay, what we believe to be true, when that starts to change, we start to realize that we have to break free of those old belief systems, the old truths, and whatever it is that's connected to that. That is a rebellion, right? We are rebelling against old structures and attempting to break free of them to reach a higher level of alignment with the truth, that the new belief systems that we're moving toward. Okay. So it's kind of an in-between place where there's a lot of chaos and the ground shaking beneath us. Okay. So if you look back at 2021, there were volcanic eruptions, there were earthquakes, literally the earth shaking, right? So we're moving from there into a year that has a little bit more stability to it. The beginning of this year, however, has the resonance or the reverberations, right? So when we think about earthquakes, there is the event, right? And then there are the smaller reverberations that come out of the end, or like after. So the first few months of our year is the aftershock of 2021. And we're talking about the first few months of our year. I really feel that January, February, March, even moving into the beginning of April, is where the better part of our work is really going to come in for us. And this is really when we're talking on a personal level. And it began kind of with that eclipse season that happened at the end of 2021 that brought us into the beginning of 2022. And there was planetary stuff at work there, with the lunar solar eclipse, and then moving into multiple retrogrades, planetary retrogrades that were going on all kind of at the same time. And one of the more important ones was the Venus retrograde that we had coming into 2022. And why that was more important is because Venus was actually finishing a life cycle. So there's an 8-year life cycle to Venus. And in this particular retrograde, it was experiencing a death. So as it was coming out of retrograde, it was literally being reborn into a new 8-year cycle. So we were closing down lots of big cycles last year. And so when we look at numerology, 9 is a complete cycle for numerology, but each planet has its own life cycle. So we were looking at a close of Venus as well. So there was a big shift from last year into this year of kind of coming into this new year with a new perspective and some new belief systems that were still in their infancy, which is why I'm considering these first few months the aftershock of 2021. It was like those things that had to fall apart in order for us to really solidify whatever our new foundation is going forward based on these new truths, these new belief systems, what we really feel deeply about and we really deeply align with, not just in our head, but in our heart. And those things moving into 2022 is what we're really working on in these first few months of the year. It was like there were things that had to continue to fall apart. There were cycles that had to close themselves up. And we're talking even like 8 years ago, like things that happened 8 or 9 years ago, like tying those things up. And Venus is an important one when it comes to 2022, because the major themes of 2022 do kind of have a Venusian quality to them, because 2 2 2 reduces to 6. Okay, so in numerology, it's always good to honor those master numbers that come in doubles and triples. But when you always need to get to the reduction of those numbers to really understand the vibration or the personality within it. And so when we reduce the 2 2 2, we are in a 6 year now. 2021, 5 year. Now we're into a 6 year. So the January, February time period, even into March, it's so front loaded. Yes, because of the Venus retrograde inside of Capricorn. But we also have our Pluto return for our country happening in February. That kind of bleeds into March. So there's and then we've got our spring solstice. We have the Easter season coming in, the kind of that season of resurrection. So we have the Pluto return, which the last time we had a Pluto return for our country was during the American Revolution. So we've got this spirit of emancipation, which is a very appropriate aftershock for 2021, right? When it was like that freedom cry. And we're bringing that very actively into this year. But it's a deeper, more guttural cry to bring ourselves out of tyranny, right? And break any structures down, any patterns that reflect that, right? Because when you think about what was going on during that American Revolution, the emancipation from the crown, right? So it was like being able to have true independence and sovereignty. And so when we think about our own lives, we are attempting in these first few months of the year to emancipate ourselves from anything that has been keeping us from our independence and our sovereignty, not just as individuals moving inside of a world, but with God. It's like, where is that sovereignty with your God? And what does that look like? And what's keeping you separate from that? And so in order to have complete autonomy, sovereignty, and freedom, we have to own that birthright as our connection of children of God. And so there's a lot of people that are coming back to that spiritual connection, or maybe even touching it for the first time in their lives and learning about what does God look like for them? How is that connection resonate and align with their lives? How can they start moving back in that direction? And as each individual is searching for this peace and sovereignty, independence and freedom and truth, it's happening. Those rumbles happen then on the macrocosm. So we're watching it happen on the news in all different countries of the world. We're watching it happen in lots of different ways. So this moving into this 2 2 2, there are a lot of mystics. If you Google the relationship of that numerology vibration of the 2 2 2, there are a lot of mystics that believe that 2 2 2 is a sign of our Creator's omnipresence. And the 2 by itself represents duality. Okay, so it is our relationship between our material world and our spiritual world. The 22, the master number 22, then points to the self-mastery level of understanding ourselves as a human being, as a soul having a human experience, right? So we understand that we are human, we are of the earth, we are here on this physical material plane, but we are truly having a soul having that experience. So we see and can balance our divinity inside of that relationship. It's like a mastery level of bringing spiritual into the material and being able to manifest it here. Okay, so we take that to the next level of the 2 2 2. And remember what I said, now we have kind of that Trinity influence and it reducing to 6. Well, in a master number, the normal reduction to 6 would come from a 33, right? So that's our triple trin or our double Trinity there. And so the difference between the two is we've got the 22 that deals with material world, spiritual world, the duality of those things, but also the union of the two. We move into the triple three, and this is where we start to understand ourselves from a conscious and unconscious relation. It's still all about relationship. You know, we've been in this theme of moving inside of the dynamic of relationship and partnership. This is what the two is all about. It really is about relationship. So we have to keep that context as we're talking about this, you know, the energy of the years as we move. And so if we're going to reduce it to 6, we're looking at, this is 6 associated with like the Cancerian nature, Venusian personality. Okay. So we've got that kind of working in with us. And let's stop for there and talk about how we come into this year and how we end this year, and especially with this Venus influence. Okay, so we come in with Venus in retrograde in Capricorn, and we actually end our year with Venus in Capricorn. Okay, so we have bookends in this year of this Capricorn personality inside of the kind of the guiding planet for us for 2022. And what I find interesting about this, if you look at the personality of Capricorn, it's like, it's down to business. It's about meeting goals. It's very serious. It's very organized. You know, it means business. Okay. So I'm sure that all of you know at least one entrepreneur that is a Capricorn. They're some of the most successful entrepreneurs in the world. And what I find kind of interesting is that we move into this year with the goat, right? We've got the goat at the beginning, we've got the goat at the end. Now, in marketing, like as we see in our mass media, the goat all of a sudden started showing up at the beginning of this year. We think of football, right? You know, it's around that kind of that Tom Brady reference of being the GOAT. They call him the GOAT. It's the greatest of all time. So I think it's kind of interesting that, you know, we even like the Super Bowl, right? Like showing all these GOAT commercials. So we come in with this very significant energy of the GOAT. We're ending with the energy of the GOAT. So there's a couple of different interesting symbolism. It's like, okay, this year could be one of the greatest of all time, right? With the amount of work that can be accomplished. And we're talking on really high realm, dimensional, spiritual ascension achievement, okay, for humanity as a whole and for our planet, but for each of us having that journey inside of the year as well. So we are looking at a year that could be one of the greatest of all time as far as our leap forward, okay? And it happens at such an accelerated rate this year, which is why we're all feeling a little overwhelmed in the first quarter of this year, because there is a lot happening. It's happening all at once and very quickly. It's almost as if the turnover is happening so quickly that we can't even integrate it. There's not even time to process what's happening before the next thing comes in. Okay. So what's happening is a very rapid shift to create a new balance. And the number 6 is about balance. It's about love. Okay. So when we have that master, that 33-6 relationship, it is really more about unconditional love. It's about that spiritual balance, the perfect awareness of the structure and design of our lives based on what we learned in the 22, right? It's like we have learned that foundational duality and how to be a soul having a human experience. And now we're going to take that to the next level and start applying it to the structure and design of our world, so we can start manifesting more divinity into the world in what our creator truly wanted it to look like, right? Heaven on earth, unconditional love, harmony, balance, trust, supporting one another, forgiveness, tolerance. It's like the true beginning of the age of Aquarius as we've understood it, right? I go back and read the lyrics from that Fifth Dimension song. of the age of Let the Sunshine In, when it's all about the age of Aquarius. Read those lyrics. It's profound, of like kind of how on point we are in our timeline right now as we start to touch on these energies as they're coming in. So this 33, from the perspective of the triple two reducing to 6, right? So we're looking at that 33-6 relationship. I hope you're following me on this. So the double trinity means radical change, and not just being able to apply it inside of our own personal lives, right? As we're understanding our own duality, creating new foundations and structures based on these elevated belief systems that are starting to resonate out of us as we're looking for a higher truth, something that has more meaning to it, something that makes us feel purposeful in our lives, that allows us to connect to one another, connect with our world, connect with God, something that is more sustainable, not just material. It's the next level. And so now that 33 or that 6 about doing it on a larger scale, meaning that this accelerated expansion then pops into the collective consciousness at a much higher rate of speed. So all of us get to kind of move together at this accelerated rate. Even those that haven't really put all of the pieces together are going to get the benefit of that pop into the collective consciousness on this larger scale. So it really is an ascended master level of vibration coming in for us this year. So this is a time when choices and decisions can really be made to embark on this new path, whatever was kind of moving in your belly last year, but you couldn't really get your hooks in to like create action that was giving you the results that you wanted. Well, we weren't really supposed to. We had so many planets in retrograde for the majority of last year that real forward momentum, we couldn't get too far. It was like we all could see it and feel it and desire it, but we couldn't get there. It was like kind of moving through quicksand, right? So now we move into this year and we're still in that little bit of a quicksand these first couple of months. But what I've been feeling is that come into March, April time period, it's like all of a sudden we're going to hit solid ground. And as we were doing this underground, under the mud, all of a sudden we're going to hit solid ground and go and take off, right? So there is this really beautiful cocoon that we're in right now, even though it could potentially be difficult and challenging and really uncomfortable in these first few months of the year. There are a lot of us that are going to have our dark night or started that dark night at the end of last year, and we're still kind of in it. There are some that are really digging in now. But what I want you to keep your eye on is this message. This is the year for answered prayers. God is actively working on your behalf to answer all of the wishes, all of the prayers, all of the desperate cries for help, whether it was for you or whether it was for another person. This is the year where those answered prayers are going to actually start taking form. So the difficult part about it is that if you currently don't have space in your life for those answered prayers, whatever needs to break down and break apart that's going to happen right now. And it's not because there's something happening to you. It's because this is all happening for you. The ability for us to manifest some of our biggest dreams and start building those foundations can happen this year. But the relationship with the divine has everything to do with what those manifestations are going to look like for you this year. We're being placed in a cocoon of connection and faith and trust, the accelerated breakdown and rebuilding of self. And It all has to do with your perspective on this and how you're going to choose to see the challenges of growth that are coming in. Are you going to see them as something that's going to defeat you and pull you down into victim energy? Or are you going to take that as an opportunity, watching God clear the foundation for you so you can see the cracks that need to be filled? Or maybe you just need to jackhammer that thing all together and build something new from the start. We can't make any of those changes until it's visible. And so these first few months of the year are about that visibility. It's about being able to see and understand what exactly it is that is either standing in our way of our dreams, or those things that is the ball and chain around your ankle that's been weighing you down for way too long. And all of those things have got to go. And most of those things, at one point or another, you already knew it. It is not unfamiliar. Whether we want to look at it or not, we all have a pretty good idea of those things that are in our lives that are holding us back. Those are the things you prayed for, are they not? And now those prayers are being answered. And sometimes that process is challenging and messy, but it is purposeful. And in the bottom of that challenge is your wish, your prayer. And so this is our opportunity to really throw ourselves into the arms of God. And whether or not you trust what's going on around you or the people that are in your life, you can put your trust in the divinity of it, because there is a bigger plan in place and that is playing out. And whether you can understand it or not right now, the miracle is in that mystery. And so the best thing that we can do as we move through this year is stay open to some of the most unimaginable possibilities and start allowing ourselves to train our ego to let go of the control, the need to control everything. Because the true opportunity inside of 2022 is to embrace the ability of our own power to heal ourselves, build the life of our dreams. All of it is possible if you are allowing yourself the space for it to take shape, right? So this is the key to the success of 2022, to be able to experience all that it wants to give to you, is your ability to let go. I mean, it's the old saying of let go and let God. And this is the year where the more you can adapt that to your life, the more accelerated your path will be, the more abundance will flow into your life, the more change you will experience. I mean, it's kind of one of these energy realms where the give and take happens instantaneously. So it's like, as you're watching God sweep this one thing away, the next thing's already coming in. And so this is what I mean about even the inability to integrate and process all of the things that are happening so rapidly. I know for me, it's like I get through a week and I feel like I've lived a lifetime, the amount of things that are happening in such a short period of time. And so this idea of this 6 energy of this year, it is the love, unconditional, that we have been waiting for, that nurtured support. And this year, because of this Cancerian nature, this Venusian feeling, this 6 vibration, there's going to be a lot of maternal support coming in. So it's not just what we normally think of as God the Father, right? There's really this, the omnipresent duality of Mother, Father, God. We're really going to feel that this year. There is going to be this compassion and this nurtured feeling while we're going through some really big shifts. And so With radical movement does come radical change. But I also want to encourage you to think about how much you've been through over the last couple of years, the awakenings that have happened, the learnings that have taken place. This is your opportunity to allow those things to become present in your life, and you can actually see them working for you. How do we know how much we've accomplished until we're actually put into a position where we can use it and practice with it? And so in these moments where we are being challenged in new ways, we get to pull those tools out, and we really get to sit in these new ideas and these new belief systems. Because once we've decided that we're going in a direction, that intention will take shape, that the universe will deliver to us opportunities to practice it. And so even as you're facing the challenges that maybe your ego wants to throw a giant temper tantrum about, you asked for it. You asked for these opportunities. You prayed for these things, and God is delivering those prayers. And the majority of this year is going to be about that. And the biggest relationship of growth will be about making your unconscious conscious. This means, where is your ego still getting the best of you? Where are you still moving inside of old trauma responses? Where are you still limited by scar tissue, right? That has created bindings that won't let you go. These things, we have the opportunity inside of these air signs that we're moving through to really have reflective and clear moments of, oh my gosh, I'm doing the same thing again. And digging into those behaviors, those reactions. There's a very different energy between responding and reacting. Reacting is unconscious. Responding is conscious, because when you're taking a moment to respond, that means that you are observing the situation and you're making a decision, an intentional choice of how you are going to respond. So if you're reacting, that's old. If you're responding, that's conscious. And this opportunity to move energy from unconscious to conscious means we become richer in our mind. And that connection between our intelligence as we understand it here as rational human beings and the emotional intelligence of the heart, we get to use those two things together. And when we respond consciously, it is a much higher percentage of the time that you're going to respond in love, because the consciousness wants you to respond in a positive and productive and sustainable way. The unconscious doesn't really care about that. The unconscious is moving in defense and moving in survival. Okay. So huge opportunities this year, huge. For those of you who don't currently have support in your lives for this kinds of growth, now is the time to get a team. Okay, whether that's family, whether it's friends, whether it's a trusted counselor, new doctors, what does this look like for you based on your needs? We have to take our physical bodies into account this year. Okay, health is going to be major for 2022. And it's because of the fact that we are moving out of a couple of years that have been incredibly stressful on our physical bodies and our immune systems. So the majority of our population is in adrenal fatigue at this point. And so when you're in cortisol burnout and you're in fight or flight for this extended period of time, systems start to shut down. Central nervous systems are all over the place. Okay, so part of this is your physical nature as well. These systems in our central nervous system, think about all of the neurotransmitters, all of those amino acids, all of those connections inside of our bodies that rely on the trace minerals that are being sweat out by the constant adrenal pump, right? It's like most of us are probably deficient in our magnesium and our potassium, and we're having to pump up our adrenals with more vitamin C, with more vitamin A. We're really having to support ourselves on a physical level. So this is also a year of renewal, replenishment, okay, rejuvenation. So take that into account for your physical body as well. that we really need to be supporting ourselves in our flesh. Okay. We can't make this duality harmonize if we're only focusing on spiritual growth and ignoring our physical body. Okay. Remember, this is the marriage of material and spiritual, unconscious and conscious. So all systems are affected by this, your mental field, your emotional field, and your physical body. So it's like lifting the hood of the car and only focusing on one part of the engine and expecting your car to run fine. It's not how it works. All of these systems are integrated together. So making sure that as you're going through this rapid and accelerated awakening process, that you are taking care of your physical body. Go for your checkups, find out what you're depleted in, get some new blood panels, taking a look at hormones, your micronutrients, just your regular blood panels, right? Like all of these different things. We don't realize how interconnected all of our systems are. And if we go into a deficiency, even in one thing, the snowball effect of that inside of our nervous systems, inside of our organs and our endocrine, all of that gets affected. And those deficiencies turn into fatigue, anxiety, depression, all kinds of things start going wrong. Okay. So really important to focus on that idea of balance, holistic connection. So one thing leads to a connection to all the other things, right? It's like one thing does not happen in isolation of anything else. Everything is connected. And this consciousness that we're moving toward of this interconnectivity inside of our divinity will give us a greater respect for the connections of our own system inside of our subtle bodies. So this is kind of what we're looking at for 2022. I know it's very front loaded. I didn't even really talk about the end of from April through December, right? But here's another thing to think about. In a year where we are balancing unconscious and conscious, right? And we start with the goat and we end with the goat. The other interesting thing about the Capricorn sign is that zodiac sign is actually connected to, in the tarot, the devil card. This is when we think of the devil inside, right? It's like those thoughts, the dark thoughts, the shadow side, the thing that tempts us into the place of being a victim, of giving up, of moving into despair and hopelessness, right? Like this is the unconscious trauma, the wounds, the scar tissue, the way that the ego keeps us small in order to keep us safe. We want to stay in what's comfortable, even if it's really bad for us, right? And so these are the unconscious chains that we are attempting to break. Those old thoughts that manipulate us, that abuse us, that keep us small, keep us from love, keep our worth undermined. That's the goat, right? Like that's the shadow, that the devil that is bookending our year. And so that is actually going to support our process because we need to have something provoke it, right? To make it visible. So that provocation at the beginning of our year and at the end of our year is going to really solidify this growth. So it makes it even more important that we are connecting with that divinity. We're connecting with a higher love. We're connecting with a higher purpose, a bigger voice, a stronger voice than the little devil that's standing on our shoulder, whispering those nasty things into our ear, right? So really important to even look at the balance of that. When we're talking about duality, remember, we can't have light without the dark. So it's all about your perspective. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for taking a listen to the energy of 2022. I look forward to being with you for the rest of this year and really taking a look at how is God showing up for us in this new energy and what can we do to support ourselves in the revelation of this unconscious becoming conscious. So thanks again, guys. Thanks for all your support. Until the next time, be well.